Okay, today I'll start something new. Today I'll start our new topic of managerial discretion. So if you remember from managerial discretion, we said that we'll be taking two main topics. One was called revenue recognition, which we have seen so far. And today we will be starting a new subpoint of the same, which is long-term assets. So when we did revenue recognition, the important point was for you to recognize so many places where the management could have made a difference of the way financial statements are going to look like. For example, when we said that we want to create a provision for future losses, that is bad debts in future, then it is just an anticipation. So how much provision you create is 100% your discretion. Not 100%, means to a large extent it's your discretion, because there is a very vast gray area. That somebody says that your losses are going to be 10% and somebody says no, it is going to be 15%. It is very difficult for someone to argumentatively speak that which of these numbers are correct and which of the numbers are incorrect. So because of that, there is a huge discretion that is possible. Similarly, when we saw there were 2-3 different methods, once again we will you will see later on via videos that there are 2 more methods possible. So across all these possible methods, let us say you have production method, you have delivery method, or you have for example installment method. Now if you follow these method versus this method, then the way the income statement is going to look is going to be different. For example, in production method, all the profit would be shown in the year when production happened, whereas in installment method, mostly the profit will be shown because of the sales. Of course, because of the sales, the profit will be shown on those years in which you are receiving the collection, whereas the delivery method is falling in between the two. So the timing with which the financial statements can be influenced is greatly impacted by the discretionary power vested with the management, that the way they are going to show the financial statement, or the way they are going to pick one route versus other, there lies a lot of discretionary power in the management, and that is what was the key takeaway from these topics. Now in the same sequence, we will continue with one more topic, and the overall objective remains same, even though we'll be talking about a lot of the long-term asset. Now what are long-term asset? Any asset which is having a life of more than 1 year is called a long-term asset. For example, your land, building, furniture, fixture, trademark, patent, copyrights, all these kind of assets which are going to live for more than one accounting 1 year, not one accounting period, 1 year, are called long-term asset. Now when we discuss the different issues of long-term assets, keep it in mind that I want all of you to keep noticing that what all places are there where management has discretion. Now, before I move forward, any question from any of the topics that we have already discussed so far? All clear? सब कुछ समझ में आ गया है? बिल्कुल 100%. Full clarity in life. करना क्या है? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We will discuss long-term asset in 3 subparts. It's like everywhere I have parts and subparts. Let me create it now. Long-term asset. We will discuss 3 subparts of long-term asset. Very intuitive enough. We will discuss what are the issues when we acquire the asset. We will discuss what are the issues when we use the asset. And finally, we will discuss what are the issues when we dispose the asset off. So in these 3 subheadings, we will see long-term assets. Let's go ahead and get started with the first one. That what are the issues that we need to consider or we need to be aware of when we acquire the asset. Okay, let's get started. When you acquire the asset, primarily you need to establish 3 things. One is that what was the cost at which you acquired the asset. Other is what do you think is going to be the useful life of the asset. And lastly, you need to establish that what do you think is going to be the salvage value of an asset. These 3 things you need to establish on the date when you have acquired an asset.
So what is the second thing?
Cost and years of useful life. N को इससे अच्छी हैंडराइटिंग में नहीं लिख सकता था यार. N. Okay. Perfect. So basically, these are the 3 things we need to establish. Now, even before I tell you, or maybe let's say nobody told you ever in a classroom, can you identify that in some of these areas, huge discretionary power is going to lie with the management. And these areas are which all of these three? Anybody?
So years of useful life.
Number of years as well as salvage value.
Yes,
Who is to tell you that this many years is going to be exactly the life of the asset? Somebody can say that, okay, I am going to use this asset for 12 years. Somebody else may say that, no, this asset is going to have a life of 15 years. Now, it is very difficult for anybody to logically say that only this one is correct and this one is incorrect in most assets. There can be situations where you could say that, oh, only this one number makes sense, this number just doesn't make sense. For example, let us say you have a broadcasting rights, which is going to be with you for 12 years. So there is no issue at all. But for most of the asset, your plant, your machinery, your furnitures, your motor vehicles, your delivery vehicles, or all such assets, it is going to be very subjective. And nonetheless, you will see that there is a huge discretionary power when it comes to establishing the number of years of useful life. So straight away, first point itself is management discretion. Yeah, Aditya, question?
Sir, for other assets like machinery and all, we get that information from manufacturers, is it?
Are those information going to be of any use? Can you say that, let us say manufacturer has said that the machinery has an estimated useful life of, let us say, 17 years. Then is 17 years going to be your estimation of N in all the cases? This may act max as a guide, but that's it. You may use it very roughly and it can deteriorate it even further. You can use it so carefully and so seldom that it can have a useful life even more than 17 years. So even in those cases where the manufacturer may give certain recommendation, even in those cases, the management will have certain discretion. Okay. How about salvage value? Can I say this is going to be my salvage value with 100% certainty? This is going to be nothing but a discretion that, okay, you think, let us say you purchase a delivery van for your product. And you think that I am purchasing it today and I will use it for, let us say, 2, 4, 6, 8 years and then I will just dispose it off. Now you bought the delivery van for, let's say, 50 lakh rupees today, and you are anticipating that what value will an 8-year used vehicle will fetch 8 years from now. Today I may have even a better estimate. Even that itself is going to be fluctuating. That today, let us say, 8-year-old vehicles of similar make are selling for these values. But this one not only is you need to anticipate that what will an 8-year-old vehicle sell for, you need to make it an estimate that what it will sell for 8 years later. What if everything has been shifted to electric vehicles and nobody is buying my diesel truck any longer? But nonetheless, whatever be the case, you need to take a best estimate. Of course, you would want to take a pessimistic best estimate, but you need to take an estimate nonetheless. Why would you take a pessimistic best estimate? Yeah, Ankur? Conservatism, because you want to be conservative. So you would take the pessimist best estimate, but nonetheless, you need to take an estimate. So even if you want to be conservative, you want to estimate this in future. Let us say you estimated that this delivery vehicle after 8 years, even in a bad economy, or let us say most of the people have shifted to, let's say, electric vehicle, I am able to take 2 lakh out of this. Somebody say no, 2 lakh is too less, 8 lakh should be a good estimate. Somebody will say no, 2 lakh itself is too much, you will not get anything. 1 lakh should be advanced the salvage value. Now here nobody can straight away say very scientifically that this one is a correct number or that one is a correct number or incorrect number. So once again, huge managerial discretion. Now these two are simple. How about cost? Can somebody have a discretion in the cost? That I want to show this much as cost. No, I don't like this number. I want to show that one as cost.
No, sir, it's as per bill.
That is determined because you can go and check the voucher, right? You can go and check the bill that how much have you paid for it. If you want to verify whether the voucher is matching, you can also check nowadays with the payment or the transfer of money? It so turns out that there is some bit of discussion even here as well. So let me demonstrate what. So that was the main point of discussing the first part, that what are the issues that are involved when you acquire the asset. That is to say that everybody can straight away see intuitively that N and SP have certain discretion. But what all issues can be faced when you acquire the asset and you want to record the cost of it? There can be some issues even then. Let me ask a question to demonstrate what am I speaking. Anybody, any time so recently has purchased any motor vehicle? Anybody in the class? All of you are.
Yes, sir, bike.
Ankur has purchased. Ankur, what value did you purchase it for?
7 lakh.
7 lakh rupees. And which vehicle was it?
Tata Eltros.
Tata?
Car. Eltros. Car.
Eltros. Okay, four-wheeler. Okay, a four-wheeler car. Now, Ankur has purchased a vehicle, a car for 7 lakh rupees. Now, do you guys know these two jargons? One jargon is called an ex-showroom price and one is called an on-road price.
Yes, sir.
Anybody who doesn't know?
Yes.
Anybody who doesn't know? So I'll assume that everybody knows. Anybody who doesn't know, quickly tell me. Okay, everybody knows. These are very common terms that we use in day-to-day life. Now, when Ankur mentioned 7 lakh rupees, is he talking about ex-showroom price or on-road price?
On-road price.
Are you sure? Others,
Sir,
except Ankur, you can answer. What he is talking about?
Sir, on-road price, because that is the amount he has paid.
On-road price.
Whenever somebody asks that what price did you buy the car for, are you going to quote the ex-showroom price or are you going to quote the on-road price? That was the question. Now everybody understands that he is quoting on-road price. Now what is the difference between these two prices?
Sir, the on-road price include the RTO tax and
RTO charges, insurance. So
and
let
many
me
other things.
just, now I will use Ankur's name, but I will give my imaginary items. Let us say Ankur purchased the car which had an ex-showroom price of 5 lakh rupees. Okay. Then he paid RTO charges of, let us say, 1 lakh rupees. Then he paid insurance of, let's say, again 50,000 rupees. Let's say he paid rupees 30,000 for music system. He paid 30,000 for music system. Then he is like one of those people, no value judgment there, but those people who believe on something or doesn't believe on something, and he got one Nazar Battu installed. What is Nazar Battu called in English? Anybody? You guys know Nazar Battu? वो ट्रक के आगे एक एकदम खूंखार सा चीज लटकी रहती है. कोई देख, ever seen this? Or maybe at the back of this he has painted बुरी नजर वाले तेरा मुंह काला or something. Unfortunately, I have no English substitute for this. Can anybody help me out? अब बुरी नजर वाले तेरा मुंह काला.
Evil eye. Evil eye.
Huh?
Evil eye. It's called evil eye.
Evil eyes. Okay, evil eyes, something, friend of evil eyes or something more sophisticated, blah, blah, blah. Basically, he got this painted for 10,000 rupees. Then he was not really happy that it was not looking funky enough. So he got some very ultraviolet or violet kind of neon lights installed for rupees 10 lakh rupees. Then he got some, let us say, reverse driving camera installed, reverse parking camera installed for another, let us say 5,000 rupees. Then some other stuff, let's say he installed some more random thing, I don't know what, some colorful jhalar. Jhalar ko kya bolte hain? Some decoration, basically some colorful decoration he installed for another let's say 2,000 rupees. Now the question is that if somebody asks car kitne ki padi, for what value did you buy the car, which all would he be including or should he include, and which all should he exclude? That is the question. Is the question clear to everybody? Answer will look it in a bit. But is the question clear? Okay, let's look at the possible opinion. Amar, go ahead.
So the on-road price only will be included, not the extra thing that he.
Okay, so what is on-road price? On-road price, who declares that this is the on-road price? Is there a showroom which says that this is going to be the on-road price?
Because that is a quoted price, no? It includes RTO and insurance. And
No,
everything.
no. Let us say you want some leather seats, or you on-road
Okay.
price will be different as compared to somebody else. On-road price completely. Is there fixed on-road price? Do you guys know?
No such
There is
fixed
no
on-road
such,
price.
only fixed price is the ex-showroom price. Even that depends upon a little bit of bargaining, but if you exclude the bargaining, ex-showroom prices are fixed. But on road completely depends. You don't want to buy music system, you will not have to pay for it. Somebody wants to buy it, they will have to pay for it. The question is that, let us say you ended up spending in all of these, which all should you include in the cost of the asset and which all should you treat as separate expenses? That is the question I am raising to the class. Okay, Ankit, go ahead.
Sir, we will exclude all the optional objects.
Okay, all the options. So basically only ex-showroom price you should have put in. Okay.
Sir, RTO is mandatory
Okay, so whatever is mandatory
Yes, sir.
mandated by who? Government.
by government.
Okay, so those which are mandatory by the government should be included, rest all should be excluded. Okay, fine. What about those assets which government doesn't have any regulation? Let us say you are purchasing one printer and you are doing all sort of expenses, that you got it painted in some different color, or you got some decoration involved. Nobody does a decoration on printer, but that is a very random. Let's say some machine. People do install Nagar Battus on the machines also, right? That machine or Nimbu Mirchi is put on machines. All those expenses. My question is that what all should I include and what should I exclude? Your answer was that it should depend upon whether something is mandatory from the government regulation. My counter to your viewpoint was that for a lot of assets, there is nothing mandated by government. Government doesn't even talk about those assets. Then what? Okay, Abhinav, go ahead.
Sir, firstly, that entire on-road price will not be included. The ex-showroom price will be included, and along with that, the interest charges or RTO charges, or I think the showroom. There are specific showroom charge. Not remembering its name right now, but that also has to be included. I think.
Okay, and what is the rationale for this?
Sir, because a showroom can also, when you purchase a car from the showroom, there is some additional amount which you have to give as a charge to the private showroom from which you are purchasing. In every car you purchase, there is I don't know the name of that. I'm not remembering a specific name, but you have to include that. But other personal charges, if you see, I mean anything personal, if you want to change the seat cover, or you want to do add any.
Are you saying discretionary versus mandatory? Are you saying
yes,
discretionary
yeah,
versus
that
mandatory?
only. Yeah.
Okay, so he is saying that whatever is mandatory we will include. If it is discretionary, we will not include. Okay, fair enough. We will see this in a bit. Let's hear it from somebody else. Nitin, go ahead.
Sir, the RTO charges differs from state to state, and also Delhi government does not charge RTO tax on two-wheeler EV. So I think only at showroom price should be included.
Okay, so he is mentioning that if some expenses are not universal, then we should not include it. So some people even give some different discount on ex-showroom price. Then what will you include? Some people will give you some, let's say some showroom wants to give a discount on ex-showroom. Some showroom doesn't want to give. Is it possible in real life?
Sir, but the company launches at the ex-showroom price, so it may be universal.
So launch kiya hai na? Is it mandatory for you to purchase something at an ex-showroom price? Is it mandatory for you? For example, let us say there is a chips packet on which MRP is written rupees 10. Now most of the retailers will sell it at maximum retail price. Some retailer may give you some discount that they are selling it only at 9 rupees. Now, does it make it mandatory that this guy gave a discount? Now everybody should record that chips packet are available at 9 rupees. No, you bought it at 10. Somebody else bought it at 9. You're getting that just price differential is no consideration, because that can happen to anything. Here I just gave you an example of a car, but car is not the only asset you could be buying, right? We need a concept which can be applied to all the assets. I am looking for, logically speaking, what makes sense, that what should be included, what should be not included. So one point was that what is discretionary, what is mandatory. We'll come to that. Somebody said that government mandated and optional, or government not mandated. So that there I said that government might not even talk about some of the asset altogether. Then what do you do? Okay, let's hear some other opinion. Pawan, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the items which provide value in the future and which can be sold off should be.
He is talking about a new thing, that if it could be sold off and it provides future value. Tell me, is Najar Bhattu providing you value?
So the car itself will provide value. So the showroom price should be made into an asset, and neon lights, sound system, these could be sold off. So I think they should also be converted to an asset, and
Separate asset, you mean?
separate or combined asset. Both of them will work, I think.
Okay, fine, fair enough. So what's the point then? What is the conclusion? You are saying कि कुछ भी कर लो, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
So other things like other Nimbu thing, which should also, I think that could be expensed.
Okay, fine. But what is the basis for this? What logic did you apply is what I'm looking at. I got your opinion, but what is the logic? Where do I draw the cutoff?
I think the Nimbu can't be sold to anybody for any price. So,
Okay. Okay. So Pawan's opinion is that if something can be resold, then you include it to the cost of the asset. If something cannot be resold, then do not.
Right.
Let us say you purchase a machine is such that it cannot be sold. Then does it make sense for me to treat the entire machine itself as an expense?
No. So if we can generate value out of the machine, then
value to नींबू मिर्ची से भी आती है यार. It keeps the negative forces away. So that is like some people, that is the most value. Okay, fine. Once again, subjective is what I'm trying to mention. Okay, fair enough. Aditya, go ahead.
Sir, the cash that we have spent, the amount of cash that we have spent, we can include in the cost.
Okay. Everything you have spent on cash, then
everything will be included in the cost because we have spent.
So he is saying that if you have bought things on EMI, do not include it in the cost, but if you have paid for it in cash, then include it. Okay, very strange, but okay, fine. His opinion.
No, sir. If
my
you have,
life, my rules type.
No, sir. In that accounting period, if you have paid for it, whatever you have paid will include it as the cost.
हाँ, तो EMI वाले में let us say कि अगले साल पे करेंगे, तो let us not include that, right? मतलब कि कैसा टीचर से पाला पड़ा है यार, एक तो कॉस्ट वाला सिंपल लग रहा था, वो भी कॉम्प्लिकेट करके रख दिया है. Because these are the things you will face in real life. You will see that in real life, even cost is not that simple. That to get that asset, you are spending in so many different other items as well. Now, which all to include, which all to not include is the question I am posing to the class. Okay, let's hear some more opinion. Yeah, go ahead, Nikhil.
Sir, we should consider only those expenses that we need to pay to bring the car on road from showroom.
Okay, fine. So we need to pay to bring the car. Basically, he is also kind of, maybe I think he's talking about mandatory or discretionary. Okay, fine. Let's
Yes,
see.
sir.
Which all is you need to? Only ex-showroom is needed?
No, sir. RTO.
Even without RTO charges, you can bring it on road, right? RTO charges need to be paid later on.
Yes, sir.
Registration needs to happen later on.
Yes, sir. So all those mandatory cost, I mean mandatory expenses.
Okay, fine. So mandatory and discretionary. Okay, fine. Any new point?
Sir, on this point, sir, the mandatory cost can be differ for the person to person.
Like counter नहीं किया है, counter करेंगे. But okay, now that you have started, let us do this. That even this mandatory or discretionary, what do you think music system? Is it mandatory or discretionary?
Sir, it depends on person to person. Like if a person is a cab driver, he doesn't need a music system. He just need a navigation system which can be used from mobile only. But if a person is using the car for the personal use, then he needs a music system because for the sake of.
Depends upon whether you are a socialist or capitalist. I would have said other way around. That if you are an office goer, you have so much tension about the office, you are not even listening to the music. But if you are a cab driver, that's the main thing. Now the counterpoint to the point that Ankur and others have mentioned, we are talking about is that discretionary and mandatory is also subjective, 100% subjective. Somebody will say that with forget about everything, without my najar battu, the car will just not move. For them, that is mandatory expenses. Somebody will say, let us say a truck driver, you are hiring a truck driver to do your delivery. You are a businessman who is producing somewhere in Surat and you want to deliver somewhere in Chennai as well as in Delhi. Now the truck driver is saying that you don't even have a music system. I am not driving your truck. What will he do throughout the route? So for you, this music system becomes mandatory. Basically, mandatory and discretionary is perfectly all right, but only thing is that it will depend from person to person. Okay. Basically, the thing is pretty simple. Here, whatever you spend directly to get the benefit of the asset can be added to the cost. So, for example, somebody may say that this neon light is discretionary. For somebody else, it is mandatory. They're saying, what's the point of buying a sports car if you can't even put a flashy violet color lights? So that is why we say that for the cost of the asset, whichever expense you have spent directly for the purpose of acquiring the asset to its state where it is ready for its intended use. So all those expenses can be capitalized. By capitalized, I mean that you can add it to the cost, and from that you can start providing depreciation. So in this particular example, all of these can be added.
So, sir, basically, and anything which has a life of more than 1 year, right?
No, even if something which doesn't have a life of 1 year, let us say you buy something, let us say a mat, a doormat, or a foot mat, which is like going to be just discarded in 3 days, but just because you have bought it for new, if you are buying it before the asset became ready for its intended use, then you can capitalize all of these. It is like we bought the car for this particular value. Now, what are the exceptions to this? The exceptions are as follows. There are 3 exceptions to this. Let me tell you the concept, then I'll address the questions. So the exception to this is that what can be added is what I have said. What can be added. So the exceptions are as follows: what cannot be added and what could not be added. If you want, you cannot add, or you want to show it separately. Okay, let me show it to what do I mean. Some of the items which if you want to show them as a separate asset, then you can show them as a separate asset. For example, let us say you want to say that music system is an independent asset on its own, and you want to depreciate music system separately, then go ahead and do it. Then your car will be everything except the music system. So if you want to record some of the asset with a separate life, then you can go ahead and do it. For example, most of the time it is done in the airline industries. Let us say that in aircraft you have a different component, and you have purchased an aircraft for, let us say, 50 crore rupees. I don't know how much an aircraft sells for, but I'm just making some random number. Some number like which is too big for me to understand. So let's say 50 crore rupees. So you bought an aircraft for 50 crore rupees, and you think that within this aircraft, I want to show my engine and other main inherent machinery as a separate asset. I want to show the internal furniture, the seating and internal furniture as a separate asset. I want to show the electricals and wiring and the electric system as a separate asset. Then go ahead and do it. In that case, even a bigger bulk can be broken up into 2 or 3 or as many subparts. When would you do it and why would you do it? You would do it in those situations where these have a separate useful life, as well as these are sizable in number.
Sir, I have one question here. Like you said about engine. So in a car, you can, because the engine number is traced to a chassis number, you can't remove the engine from the chassis. I don't know. I'm not sure about airplanes. So does that legal framework also come in there, that if in an airplane it's allowed, you can remove the engine and change it to so we can count it as a separate engine?
So I'm no expert of aircrafts. I just assume some random stuff, that let us say some inherent machinery of the aircraft behaves something differently. Then the internal furnishing behaves something differently, and let us say the basic wiring and some light bulb that you can see above the seats and something, or the AC vents and all those behave differently. If the amount is sizable, then you can treat them separately. Of course, legally things may also influence a little bit.
Okay.
But here that is not the cutoff. The cutoff is that for you, they should have a distinct separate life, and also they should be sizable. So you can break them up also. So if you want to treat them separately, in that case, you can exclude them and treat them as a separate asset. Or another exception is that when you can exclude them is if you want to adopt the materiality concept. For example, let us say the buyer bought this car in Delhi and he wants to get it delivered to, let us say, Noida. Now there is a delivery charge. Let us say a driver took, let's say, 200 rupees to deliver. Now, conceptually speaking, only when the vehicle was available to you at your workplace, it was ready for its intended use. So let us say this is the time where you place the order. This is the time where the asset is ready in your godown or in your whatever garage where you want to use the asset. Now it is ready for its intended use. Now this 200 rupee was spent before this. So conceptually speaking, even this can be capitalized. But if you want, by materiality, if you want, you can exclude this. That it is such a small number, I don't want to include it. I don't want to bother. I want to show this as an expense of this year itself. So first exception was if you want to show an asset separately. Second exception is that if you want to apply the materiality and show some smaller numbers separately as an expense. And the third thing that will not be included is that here you don't have a discretion. This is mandatory. Those kind of expenses which we call abnormal expenses. Now, what sort of expenses are abnormal expenses? These are those expenses which ex ante nobody wants to pay. Now, what is ex ante? It is just in anticipation. That in anticipation nobody would want to pay for it. For example, let us say you are getting your car delivered from Delhi to Noida, and midway it meets with an accident and you need to pay for repairs. Let's say you need to pay for repairs for rupees 2 lakh rupees. Now, was the car ready for its intended use before you paid this repairs? No, because car was still en route. It was still not there with you that you could have started using it. Even before that you paid for repairs. Now these repairs are noticeably different from every other expenses above. Every other expenses above, some sane person may want to pay for it even in anticipation. That I want to pay this much for neon lights, I want to pay this much for music system. That doesn't make you insane. But nobody would want to pay for these repairs in anticipation itself. That they would say that, oh, you are delivering my car from here to Noida. Take this 2 lakh rupees by chance if you ram my car somewhere. They will say you better be careful, right? So abnormal expenses are all those expenses which in anticipation you wouldn't want to pay for. After the things have happened, you have to pay. That is a separate matter. But in anticipation, you wouldn't want to pay. So these kind of expenses cannot be clubbed to the cost. So here it's not even your discretion, that it is just not allowed. These are just not allowed. Rest all, you have a discretion. How would you exercise this discretion? In two ways. One discretion is that if you think that amount is too small, then by materiality you can treat them separately. When you treat them separately, then show them as an expense in that year. And other discretion is that if you want to show them as a separate asset altogether. Yeah, now I will have questions. Yeah, go ahead, Amar.
So then how will we record that, accidental damage that happened?
It will be an expense of this year. So this year we will pass an expense, that accidental damage expense, debit, and whatever cash credit.
Okay.
Yeah. So the difference it will make is that this will not get added to the cost, and by then it will not be shown as depreciation. This line that I have told you just now, I would want to, if the time remains, I would want to show it in an illustration soon enough. So if the time remains, I'll show an illustration. Yeah, go ahead, Sarthak.
But sir, this may damage our asset value as well, right? If we do not repair it.
Yes, yes. What we are saying here is that we are not saying that don't do repairs. What we are saying is that you can't add this to the cost. You can't say that now I have purchased a car which is costing, let us say this is 6 lakh, and let us say imagine that these are all 2 lakh more. So you can't say that instead of 8 we have purchased a car for 10 lakh rupees. No, this is not a car of rupees 10 lakh rupees. You have purchased a car of only 8 lakh rupees. Over and above this, you have also already spent 2 lakh and in repair expenses. That's what we are saying. Okay. Yeah. Let's hear it from Avinash.
Sir, like the example of aeroplane only, we will record in car also the sizable assets like the engine, the internal seats also, like the separate assets.
Yeah.
Like in aeroplane also, like it's the total aeroplane cost is 15 crores. So like how do they record like the engine a separate asset, and all together they'll record as 50 crores like the engine.
Okay. So if I understand your question, are you asking that I paid 50 crore rupees to get the aircraft? How am I able to break it up?
Yes, sir.
You will just find some suitable estimate. You will find some, for example, let us go to all the, let us say I will go to the parts store. Let us say the parts are quoting that for engine and other thing, they are saying that if I want to replace it, it is costing me 60 crore rupees. Let us say I went to the internal furnishing. They are saying that if you want to do internal furnishing, it is costing me 20 crore rupees. And I went to, let us say, electrical. Then if I want to repair the or replace the electrical, they are quoting me, let us say, 20 crore rupees. So I will break this 50 crore rupees into this ratio, 1:3:1. Okay, so I will find some rational ratio to break these expenses. That's not too much of a big deal. Okay, or yeah, you can ask the airplane manufacturer also while buying, but I don't know whether they will say that they also might not have an estimate. Okay, you might have to estimate on your own, but that's not the big deal. The big deal is that what all can be capitalized and what all cannot be capitalized. So there is one thing which just cannot be capitalized at all. This is the only exception which is just not even allowed. There is no discretion, which is these kind of abnormal expenses. That abnormal expenses, you can't say that, no, I want to apply my discretion and I want to add it. No, that is not allowed. But others, you have a discretion that if you want to treat one particular sub asset as a separate asset, then you can take it separately. Or if some numbers are very small and you want to treat it as a separate expense by materiality, you can go ahead and